everybody. Welcome to the Truth Will Set You Free show. I'm your host, Linda Diane Wattley, and this show was brought to you by TLBTV and the Liberty Beacon Project. I am working at being calm today because I have a very unique, powerful, spiritual, blessed lady here for us today. She is bold. I don't even think she realized how bold she is. I mean, who would come out and tell the world, yes, I look Jesus in the eyes? Who would just be comfortable to say something like that? Well, my guest today is Clementina Marie, and she's going to tell me her last name.
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
It's Clementina Marie Giovannetti.
Thank you so much. I want people to know she is so many things. She's a spiritual mentor, speaker. She has a syndicated radio show that's covered over 60 countries where she shares spiritual matters because she has so much to give. She has so much she wants people to know and understand about God, about the creator of this whole universe, not just Earth, but this whole world. And she opens herself up and take chances on sharing her gifts and talents. I mean, she's amazing. She has gifts of dream interpretation, healing, insight. I mean, it's just so many things she covers with the gifts God gave her. But I want people to understand something about her. It was not easy for her to come to her liberty. And that is important to me to share because she, like many females in this world, not from the world, but within her own home, was not appreciated to be a girl. It was almost as though she wasn't even a human being because she was not a boy. And her survival in the midst of that is amazing. At the age of 5, I want you to tell us what happened with you and God.
That was quite a turning point, Linda. It really was at the age of 5. I didn't realize prior to the age of 5, and it's so difficult for me to say this, you know, I'm 63 and I'm still struggling with this, that I'm so different. Because I just assume that all of us, you know, when we incarnate, that we basically come in, you know, with the same package, so to say, the same spiritual abilities and gifts. And at the age of 5 years old, like normal, you know, mom and dad would say to go to bed. I went to bed and my body, my physical human self, fell asleep, you know, with Teddy. And like normal for me, my spirit self, my soul, would just leave my body and float up to the ceiling. But this particular night was really, really special. I had what I refer to in the book, Jesus and a Roman Centurion, as an angelic assignment. I had been getting those from quite a young age. And the angel basically told me to follow her. And I was like, okay, because to me, that was like normal. That's what I did, Clementina Marie Giovannetti, when I went to sleep at night. And then if the angels needed me, they would call me. And I followed her. And the next thing you know it, I was born and raised in the ghetto, in the projects, Cabrini Greens of Chicago, Illinois, back in the 50s. And unfortunately, it hasn't really changed much. There's still that incredible, tense challenge, their violence. And the next thing you know it, I found myself in spirit standing in front of this house in Chicago that was engulfed with flames, totally on fire. And the angel told me that my assignment was to go into the house and to wake up the children and the family dog and to make sure that they followed me outside to safety. Okay. my spirit body just floated. I mean, this was like more normal for me than being in a body. I mean, really, it really was. I know.
Wow.
It's just effortless. It's so natural. There's no thinking about it. It's like the peace, the oneness of ourselves as a spiritual being. And I found myself in the room with the children, and they were sound asleep. And all I could do was just yell, wake up, wake up. Now, how they heard me, I don't know. But I wasn't thinking about that because I was just so used to being a spiritual being that I didn't think about how these things worked. I mean, that's where my connection with God and the angels and faith just kind of like sealed the deal. Like I just did my part and I didn't worry about God's part, how he allowed these things to occur. And the children woke up, the dog woke up, and then they followed me out of the house to safety. Did they see me? I have no idea, obviously. The next morning, well, eventually I came back into my body, and it was quite a big assignment, I thought, for a 5-year-old.
5-year-old.
It was a pretty big assignment. I mean, I'd never had to go back, float into a burning house before. So that was a pretty big assignment. And, I eventually came into back in my body, and I, waddled my little butt up to the kitchen, looking for some Cheerios. And, Dad's sitting at the breakfast table, and he's got the Chicago Tribune, and, and he's just, how guys are, there's reading it right in front of them, right? But I knew he was behind the newspaper. And, Mom was fixing up some type of breakfast. And I was like, wow, what an assignment I had last night. Man, I'm really tired, the house was on fire, and I'm explaining everything. Now, mind you, Linda, prior to this moment at the breakfast table, I've lost count of how many times I've been beaten before for exposing to my mom and dad about my abilities, my spiritual abilities. So you would think, why would I go to the kitchen table and be so innocent and tell them, right? Why didn't I go to the kitchen table and go, can I have some breakfast? And not say anything, right? And Dad's shaking the newspaper. And he brings the newspaper down, and little did I realize, apparently the fire occurred like at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and had made the morning newspaper that my dad was reading. And he read the whole entire story already in the paper. Now, his little 5-year-old Italian girl, as you said in your intro, they dismissed. I mean, the dog had more priority, in the house than I did, for crying out loud. So it was like, what? And he was shaking. My mom then says, because they were Roman Catholic, and my mom said, I told you, Andy, she's possessed by the devil. And I have to say that with humor because after all these years, it's just so funny. I mean, really. But as a 5-year-old, it wasn't funny at all. For a parent to be telling their child, she's possessed by the devil. I'm calling the Catholic priest this afternoon, and that's it. We're going to take her in, and we're going to put her through exorcism because I can't take this anymore, living with this devil child. Well, my father's response, once he finally put the newspaper down, which he did many times previous, was he loved the belt. And he would take his leather belt and just start whipping and whipping and whipping my legs, because he felt that that was the only way in his reality to beat this out of me, whatever it was. They never connected it to God. They never connected it.
But yet they were really church-going people.
Oh, they were the best. When after they died, Linda, they were going to be sitting right next to Jesus, on his throne. I mean, they were so delusional about their Catholicness. And yet, they were full-time alcoholics. My father and grandfather sexually assaulted me on a regular basis. The beatings were on a regular basis because every time I'd open my mouth. But they were going to heaven, right? And I was possessed by the devil. It's that disconnect. Just because you are a member of a organized religion, and you might even know scriptures backwards and forwards and can repeat them like a parrot, doesn't mean anything at all. It doesn't mean that you actually live it, and even more importantly, know God and know Jesus and experience them. it's just a disconnect. It's just a make-believe world, that my parents they were very delusional about their own belief system about God and Jesus.
But you somehow was able to understand why they were the way they were.
I did.
Explain to people how you concluded their position in life.
I couldn't understand, Linda, why my parents or even the Roman church, the priest and all of that I was exposed to, or the gang members, right outside my door. I just couldn't understand why they were so disconnected. I knew they were disconnected, to validate what you just said. I knew they were disconnected. I knew that they were living in these alternative realities, these man-made realities, and that even though like my parents and the priests, are all going to church and they're all little perfect people on Sunday and all of that, but behind the closed doors, oh my God, right? The way they lived and the way they functioned. And what blew my mind as a little child was, why don't they see this? Like, I'm just a kid. And I can see the insanity. I can see the delusionment here. But I just didn't understand why. I knew what happened to them. Like, I could see where they allowed themselves to go to, like living in this shadow of themselves and totally disconnected, what I refer to as the light or God's love or God's presence. But why would anybody choose that? So one part of them is saying, I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, I love God, I love Jesus, I'm going to heaven. But then they live these completely opposite lifestyles and beat their children or rape their children. And then they hate each other too. I mean, no disrespect to you, but every other word, and I put it in the book, my father is nigger this and nigger that. What? And you're a Catholic and you're going to heaven? Total insanity. I just didn't get it. I just didn't get it at all.
You concluded that they just were asleep.
Spiritually asleep. That they had somehow allowed their humanistic personality to just take complete control. And the personality just really went insane. I mean, creating these delusional realities where they believe that there's something that they're not even. And they think that they're all this and that. But I know, what they did to me firsthand. So I think they just went into denial of their own soul, of their own soul's spiritual presence. And that's why they couldn't acknowledge my soul or my spiritual presence, because they already denied their own. And that's where I think the majority, so many humans today are asleep. They're spiritually asleep, and they've just allowed this humanistic personality and ego to just get so brainwashed, so programmed and manipulated into what I refer to as the matrix or the man-made world. And they're just obsessed with that. And all that they are concerned about is the body, the personality, the mirror image, in the mirror. When do they even look within and realize that they're a child of God and they have a soul and what their soul's purpose is, not what their ego wants them to do or their personality wants them to do? Because souls have no skin color. Souls have no gender. Souls, why do souls need money? We don't need any of these illusions, right? It's just like we don't need a soul doesn't need 50 pairs of shoes. What does a soul care? So, but the personality does. And they may call themselves Christians or they may call themselves Catholics. But there's a disconnect and they're spiritually asleep. And all I'm really doing is having a talking head to deal with, a personality that's just going of whatever they've allowed themselves to be brainwashed with or programmed with. They're not in touch at all with their own true soul essence, let alone find that connection with God or find that connection with Jesus. Mm-mm.
And when you think about it, okay, so like for you, that was a loveless experience for a child.
Oh, there hate, fear, domination, control, intimidation. I mean, it was constant threats. I lost threat how many times? You know, you live under my roof, you don't do what we tell you to do, you know, then we'll kill you. I mean, that was my option on my a la carte menu. Either conform, obey, and become just like us, or we're going to beat it out of you. And if it happens that we kill you, we kill you.
Well, tell me this. When was that moment when another human being's love was able to enter into your spirit, your heart, from another person, since it wasn't your parents or your family?
I'm shaking my head. No, I can't even, because along the way, God and Jesus continued to make themselves known to me even more and more and more. And, you know, in the book, I shared that I finally did leave home. I ran away. I was not going on 10. And if you remember that point, I was living on the streets, and I used to go to the restaurants in the back of the doors and beg for food and so forth like that, or ask for a job or whatever I can do. And they called the cops on me. And one day the cops came and got me when it was during daylight, and I was just, walking, because I wasn't going to school when I was a runaway like that, because I knew if I went to school, I didn't know what was going to happen. I basically wanted to stay away from the popo. I didn't want the cops to find me, and because they never came to my rescue during that whole time. But anyway, the cops picked me up, and he put me, in the squad car, and, I just went, I wouldn't tell him my name. I wouldn't tell him nothing, because I didn't want to get into the system. And so I'm sitting there, and he had me in the front seat. Back then, I don't know, I guess that was the old days. In the 50s, they didn't have all the, the monitors and all of that. So you sat. So he made me sit in the front seat with him. I mean, after all, I wasn't a criminal. I was just a kid, right, that left home. And, he's going on, and I'm like, look, if you're really real, this is your time and your moment and opportunity. Will you please manifest? I mean, yes, the angels come to get me, at night. I get all that. But like God, Jesus, like, this is your moment. Okay? Like, here it is. And if you recall in the book, what happened? Jesus showed up.
And it's weird how, because your sleeping quarters was the worst I've ever heard.
Oh, it was in the living room on a urine-soaked little pull-out, like, sofa chair type of thing. And my dad worked nights, and he would come home like at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And of course, I'm a kid, right? So he'd come home at 2, 3 in the morning, turn on the lights, turn on the TV, drink and carrying on. And then if he felt like it, he'd come and assault me as well. And then I was expected to wake up then at 7 o'clock to get ready to go to school, and then walk through the jungles of Chicago in the ghetto and show up at school with a smile on my face, and go hi, and let the BVM nuns, right, and then tell me what to do for the rest of the day. But, that day in the cop car, I'll never forget, because I felt a hand on my right shoulder. And I was a little shaky, but it felt really good. Whoever was having a hand on my shoulder felt really good. And when I finally had the courage, to kind of turn around, looked up, there he was. There was Jesus. And that was the first time at 9, 10 years old in this lifetime that I recall his actual presence, coming to me and being with me. And he just, he was kind of like, we got this. Don't worry about it. We're fine. So, and we did, because I found a way out, and that cop, he lost me.
So did that make you happy to have the angels, to have God and Jesus find you to be a source to embrace? Did that really make you happy?
It did, and it still does. I'm spoiled now.
Even though you was a child?
Oh, God, that was enough. You
was happy, even though you didn't fit into the world. Their presence was so potent that it allowed you to accept your
100%.
Your authenticity at an early age.
Right. That is so well put. I just, once I left home, I didn't know. I mean, I knew my immediate surroundings in the projects of Chicago were just as bad as my mom and dad. But, when I decided to run away, I went to the suburbs. I went to, because I grew up, with the poor people, right? And, so I thought, well, I'm going to go where all the rich white kids are at, Maybe it's a little better. Maybe they're not as insane as my mom and dad are. I didn't know, right? Because, you're watching the show, Leave It to Beaver and, Donna Reed. And I'm like, well, they're all white people and white kids, right? So I'm a kid from the ghetto. So I thought, well, when I run away, I'll just go over there to the suburbs. But the kids and the people in the suburbs are just as crazy, I'm telling you. Maybe not as volatile as the people in the ghetto, but they have their own issues as well. But no. Ever since that was the first moment that I can actually, consciously remember of Jesus's presence. And from that moment on, it just continued, and God's presence continued. And I was always... And now I totally understood what Jesus was saying when he said I was in the world, but not of it. I'm in the world, but I am not of it. And I've never had that kind of humanness, that human connection, with family like that at all. It's always been from Jesus and God. And they spoiled me because their love is so profound. And so just distinct and reliable, It's not like, can you hear me? It's not like Verizon or Sprint. I mean, it's consistent and reliable all the time. And they help you. They help me to, just to continue on. So as much challenges were coming in front of me as I continued after 10 years of age, it didn't matter. Because in my soul, I always felt such a profound bond and connection with them. It was like, yes, I see all of this, and I feel the insanity, and I feel the hatred. But in me, I'm kind of like E.T., I'm like glowing, And it doesn't mean I feel the tremendous love in me is what grounds me and protects me as I go through my humanistic life. And it doesn't shield me from feeling the intensity of the hatred, right? Or fears, or the way people behave and treat each other. I'm still feeling that because I'm an empath and a sensitive. So I'm still feeling all that negativity and hatred. But the love in me, the bond that I have with Jesus and God in me is so deep and profound that it overrides all of that negativity or hatred or evil or darkness that's going outside of me. So I have like this temple of light always inside of me. And so no matter where I go, the darkest, and boy, I've been there, the darkest of darkest corners, as you know from my story, it's like the light, this love, this bond with them is always there. And so wherever dark corner I go to, I'm always carrying this within me. And somehow that was the hardest thing I had to learn, not about not being loved by a human being or having those kind of relationships or getting like a support, an emotional support from a human being. That wasn't even on the list anymore by the time I left home at 9-10. What I had to learn was how to balance this, because there was such an extreme contrast from my soul's reality of this it's like a euphoric feeling all the time that I carry inside of me, and yet the outside world is in such chaos and such distress. And I had to find a balance between what I carry in me and what the world is experiencing. And I gave up a long time ago, like, why don't they have this? Because they haven't chosen it yet. That's the only answer I can come up with it.
But would you say you chose it?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And so you read the story, Jesus and a Roman centurion. Okay, so if it's okay, so I was a man in that lifetime. The difference. I mean, the first time I saw him, and I'm like, you're me, or you? I mean, this guy was massive, right? Big. And so a Roman centurion, I dedicated my life to the Caesar Augustus by the time I was 17 years of age. And then I became a centurion. It takes years and years before you get promoted. And, I was out there just doing whatever Caesar told me to do. I didn't have a mind of my own. You know, I had my sword. He told me to kill somebody. I killed somebody because I thought that that's what I was supposed to do as a soldier, just like our soldiers today of the United States of America, right? They're sent to Afghanistan. They're sent to Iraq. They kill people because that's what the government tells them to do. So I had that job too 2,000 years ago. And then one day, you know, we were hearing rumors about Jesus, that there was a little boy that had just been born named Jesus, and that he was going to become the king of the Jews. But that's all we really knew about it. And I can tell you, since I was there and amongst them, that the Roman government didn't take anything serious at all about it. It was like, but Herod the Great lost his damn mind. He was really a madman, and he had put his children to death because they threatened his power. He had put his wife to death because she threatened his power. So anybody that got in his reign of power, he just had him executed, beheaded, or whatever. So when he heard about the rumors about this little boy, this little Jewish boy that had just been born, and that in fact he was going to be the king of the Jews, well, Caesar Augustus had already given Herod the title of the king of the Jews. So he wasn't going to have this. So him and Caesar were best friends. And he was like, get the kid, get rid of the kid. I'm the king of the Jews, you know? And Herod's like, really? So I don't know if any other soldier got the assignment, but I definitely got the military assignment for sure, to go find this child. Well, 2,000 years ago, they didn't have last names. They didn't have census yet. So all I had to do was get on my military horse, and I had to go find a Jewish boy under the age of 2 years old with the first name Jesus, and his mother, they didn't know that, was Mary, and his father was Joseph. They had no idea where they lived, nothing. Go find him and then bring him back. Okay, I'm out. I'm a centurion. I'm out looking for a 2-year-old child. I mean, but I had taken my military vows, you know, and I was going to do whatever I was going to do. You want this 2-year-old child? I'll find him. And I did find him. And I knew it was Jesus. And back then, 2,000 years ago, I wasn't who I am today. I beside not being a man, I didn't have that bond or like connection, you know, like I wasn't aware like I am in this lifetime of God's presence and Jesus' presence. I was a professional killer as a centurion. But as soon as I saw him, one, he didn't run. He was never afraid of me at all as I approached him. And I immediately began to feel lightheaded and disoriented. And that's how I knew it was him, because he had such a profound, energetic, spiritual effect on me. And got off of my horse, walked toward him, and immediately, imagine this, a centurion, a 38-year-old centurion, I kneeled down in front of this 2-year-old child, the one that I'm supposed to take captive of and take back with me to Rome, let them do whatever they want to do with him. I took off my helmet, took off my sword on the left side, put everything down in honor and respect to this child. This child never said a word to me, and I never said a word to him, but we looked into each other's eyes. And that was it. That's where I found my love, that moment. It was such a profound love. There is no human words to describe the love that I felt when I looked into his eyes. And then from that moment on, how he did it, I don't know. Why he did it, I don't know. But he can just completely dematerialized the Roman centurion. It was like that human personality that I had allowed myself, the man-made person that I had allowed myself to become under the influence of the Roman government and Caesar of Augustus. They totally programmed me and brainwashed me, and I was so proud to be a centurion. All melted away just by looking into his eyes. And what was left? This beautiful, innocent child of God. I was God's child again, not man-made anymore, but I was back to the original soul of what God had made. And I fell in love with him. There's nothing else to say. And not as a guy, girl. I fell in love with his soul. I fell in love with his God, because through him, I experienced God. And he allowed me to experience his world through him. There are no human words to explain that kind of experience that happens on a soul level when you look into somebody's eyes and you are into their soul. When I got back up, I knew from that moment on that I could never, ever, ever hurt him or harm him. In fact, I would do anything, even to put myself in danger. Because from that moment on, I had dedicated my life. I knew I dedicated my life, my soul, to him from that moment on, no matter what he needed. And remember, not a word spoken at all. It was that kind of profound connection. And then I got back on my horse, and I just knew the ending of this story. And I got back, and my superiors were all waiting for me. There was no Jesus riding with me on the horse. He was a 2-year-old child again. Like, you're a Roman centurion, right? No problem. How hard is it to retrieve a 2-year-old child? And I get back, and they're looking in my eyes and my face, and there's no Jesus. And the first thing they said was, "What has he done to you?" They knew immediately I was in his presence. What has he done to you? Because they could see in my eyes and in my face, almost as if it's like, you've seen God, like you've seen the eyes of God. And I never said a word. From the moment I returned to the palace in Rome, I never said a word. Never. And they brought me down in the dungeons, where I used to take criminals down in the dungeons, strap me into this barbaric chair by your ankles and wrists. And the inquisition, the interrogation, lasted for nearly 4 hours. And they wanted to know where he was, what did he look like, what did he do, what did he say? Because now, remember, I had been with them since 17 years of age. Now I'm 38. And I didn't bring them back. And they know what that meant. That I betrayed everything that I was as a Roman centurion. I betrayed Caesar Augustus. I betrayed the Roman Empire. They were very, very concerned now, deeply concerned about this little child. That he can have an effect like this, such a profound effect, to make one of their centurions betray everything that I had ever become and allowed myself to become, knowing that it was going to be my end of execution. And I never said a word to them, not one word, ever. Because all I wanted to do was, I made my choice, I made my decision, I know you're going to execute me for this because I betrayed you. And all I want to do, just like that moment in the car when he had his hand on my shoulder, was like, I just want to stay with him. You guys can do whatever you want to do. You can yell and scream at me and threaten me, just like my parents in the world. And it was like, I'm just going to stay with him because this feels a lot better. And of course, at that moment, I didn't know, and they beheaded me. I didn't know, for my betrayal to the government, I didn't know if that was going to stay with me after death. But I sure prayed for that, because it was a love. It was a world, a reality, a connection to God that I never even knew was possible for any human to have. And I was willing to take the risk to hold on to that and let go of the centurion and let go of my human life, hoping that that was something I was able to keep forever. And when I came back in this life, I still have it.
And it's interesting how comfortable you are talking about regressing, talking about being a man in a past life. How did you flow into this kind of reality? Because it's not an everyday reality that people carry in conversations over a cup of coffee. How did you just mush in there and receive this as a reality that is a truth that you live by?
Well, as I stated in the book, it all began at the age of, and it was interesting. So I was beheaded. I met him at 38 years of age in my former lifetime and got beheaded within 24 hours after that. And then 2,000 years later, okay, I incarnate again and in a woman's body, with crazy Catholic Italian family people. And they want to, put me through exorcism because I'm possessed by the devil. I mean, little would they realize what that connection was. And never would they believe it in a million years, by the way, that I met the Jesus that you guys are talking about. I met him. Okay. And he gave this to me? No, there's no way. They would absolutely, they probably would have put me away in some kind of institution. So it was a good thing I left. But at the age of 39, I had an angelic experience again, but this time it wasn't when I was asleep. I was wide awake, and my gift of healing awakened. And next thing you know, people were just showing up at this old farmhouse that I was renting. And I was laying hands on people, and it was like, so this is what you experienced. Because God was coming through me, exactly the same. And he said that over and over again in this lifetime to me, that others, that you can do it. Others can do exactly what I did and even greater things. And at 39, it was my moment when my healing gift was awakened and God was coming through and people and animals were coming in. And it was just profound. I mean, it brought me to my knees on a daily basis because the love, the such profound, overwhelming presence of God's love, when it comes upon you like that, I mean, a lot of people, no disrespect, and I say this in a nice, humble way, but there's a lot of people who claim to be healers today. And a lot of them base it on, well, they're certified in this and they're certified in that, and they got this. I don't have none of that. I give it all to God. I'm a nothing. I accept my nothing. And I knew at the age of 39 when God decided to use me as a vessel, like he had used Jesus during his healing ministry time. When it's God's presence and there are no techniques. And when he comes upon you, you really gotta, and you don't take the credit for that. You give it to God because it is God who's doing the healings. It's not you, and it's not because of a technique and a certification or anything. So that was where I picked up. I really feel that when I died at 38 and then at 39 in this lifetime, there it was, and they picked up exactly where I left off at my execution in the former lifetime. And I really believe Jesus seated me in that former lifetime, like he had done with many of his apostles. He had anointed me with that gift of healing through my soul 2,000 years ago. But it had taken all this time until obviously my soul was ready to come back and to be strong enough to deal with obviously the responsibility of this type of life that God has given me. So when you talk about the love and all of that, I don't even think about human love. Never, ever. Because one, I never had it as a child, but then Jesus and God stepped in. And like I said, there's no human that's ever going to provide me with that kind of love, that profoundness. It's just, like I said, I'm spoiled and I don't have any hunger for it. There's no desire for it. But the centurion started in 2002. So the healing was in 1995 when they awakened my gift of healing. And then in 2002, I'm going to the bathroom in the morning and like every girl, I'm brushing my teeth and my hair. And there was like a fog in the mirror. And so I took a cloth. I'm trying to wipe it off and it ain't getting wiped off. And I'm like, oh, well, must be an imperfection, like a little cloud in the mirror. Something happened, seal broke or something. And the thing just kept on building and building. And then the next thing you know, it was pretty big. And I couldn't even look in the mirror anymore. And when I looked, all of a sudden, it became the Roman centurion. And I looked at him and I'm like, I'm used to, like I said, hanging out with angels and, Jesus coming around and being with me. So when I saw this image in my mirror, I was like, okay, just take a deep breath. It's all right. God's with you. It's okay. And I said, please identify yourself. What's your purpose? And all he said was, we need to talk. You think? You're in my mirror. Yeah. Do you think can you move over a little bit, And
wow.
I didn't know what else to do with him. So through prayer, and I'm a praying girl. I mean, I got my rosaries with me all the time. And I'm praying. And finally it was like past life regression. And I'm like, And I had never undergone a past life regression before. I was aware of it, right? And acknowledged it, but I had never personally experienced it. So I went, well, okay, So I made phone calls, and then I found somebody, and I wanted to make sure she didn't know anything about me at all. That was really important to me. She didn't know nothing about me at all. And I made the appointment, never told her about anything about me, never told her about the man in the mirror, didn't say anything. And I said, okay, yeah, I'm here for past regression. She's like, is there any reason? I go, no, just thought it'd be fun. And so I sit down in the recliner, and she's putting me to, in that state. And then when she counts, okay, I'm going to count back to 3, 2, 1, where are you? And there he was. The Roman centurion was, with the wrist locks over his wrist and his ankles and sitting in this wooden chair. And I was in my ghost body, like when I normally was with the angels. And I'm looking at him, and I'm in this like underground dungeon of this palace. And I'm like, there's the guy in the mirror. And the guys, the supervisors, the soldiers were interrogating him. Why did you betray Rome? Why did you betray Caesar? Where is he? And I'm like, okay, we're having a moment, calm down. And the next thing you know, I became the centurion.
I have to ask you this question because, Jesus basically comes under the Christian faith. And one of the things that they emphasize on is salvation, heaven, hell. But the way you sound is like you just don't go anywhere. You just keep coming back.
We don't die. That's a myth. We don't die. Our souls cannot die. Our souls live forever and ever. Only our human body and human personality expire. But then it's not finite. Yeah, I know. As a Catholic, it was if you were a good little girl, you're going to go to heaven. If you're a bad little girl, you're going to go to hell. And if you're good and bad, you go to purgatory. And then we'll get back to you when we make up our mind what we're going to do with you. Kind of like a review process, Let's see, do we have more room upstairs or downstairs? That's where we'll put her. No. We continue. And as our soul evolves and goes through, I kind of look at the soul's life and evolution, like I had my centurion life. And after that, I did do other past life regressions and kind of filled in the blanks a little bit. Like, was it just from a lifetime 2,000 years ago to today? Or did I have lives in between? And I had other lives in between. And it was really interesting. And I was put to death in every one of them as well. Nothing changed. This is the oldest I've ever been allowed to become in a human form. I mean, it's a miracle. They've always put me to death, at 30.
So you're telling me I've been here many times?
As far as I have been shown and all the work that I have done with masses all over the world, not everybody obviously is going at the same rate of transition and then coming back through reincarnation. It all depends on the soul growth and what in fact the soul has learned or not. And it's kind of like a wheel. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is, like a lot of the young people today, all they're thinking about is abundance and money. They want to be like millionaires when they're 21 years old, and they don't want to even work anymore. And they just got, it's like, why work at the same job for 30 years, and get a gold watch? I don't want to work at all. Let's just make a bunch of money by the time I'm 18 or 20. And then what are you going to do after that? So it's the soul evolves by experiencing different perspectives of life. So in this life, I'm a girl again. I incarnated in a woman's body, white skin. And we know a little bit about my childhood. And I had many, many, many challenges to deal with, of hatred and lack of love. And oh boy, and when the KKK came after me, all those great guys. Okay, so this life, was kind of like, I had a stack of tests that I basically had to get through. I had a lot of illusions to get through and fears to get through. So prior to coming into incarnation, we really sit down with our guides, and Jesus could very well be a part of that. Of course, God's presence is everywhere. And there's a discussion as far as there's a review of our former lifetime, like to a Roman centurion or people of that time, to definitely my boss, I didn't make the right decision when I betrayed them, right? But on a soul level, what do you think? I made the perfect decision. It might have been wrong by man's standards, but it was right in the eyes of God, right? And it cost my human life. And it cost Jesus's human life as well. He was doing God's work. He wasn't doing man's work. And it cost him his human's life. So even though you might fail, and people might consider me 2,000 years ago, if you looked up, God forbid if I actually could find myself in the records, right, as a centurion 2,000 years ago, betrayer, right? And they would have all these terrible things about me, that what I did as a centurion. But if you look at God's records, I did everything right, and the choices that I made at that lifetime. So it's almost like the complete opposite. The life on earth is kind of like an illusionary world. It's not exactly, the end product. And people are like all going after the illusions and money and all of that. But they minimize themselves, and really, it's like when you're poor and you have challenges, these are blessings, because this really gives you the opportunity, one, to need God, which I guess isn't very popular anymore, and people don't want to need God. They'd rather feel more secure about themselves, because they've got, dead trees, I call money, dead trees with great ink on, that artificial security. And it's only like if their money fails them and their connections fail them, then at the last resort, they might go to God, right, and beg God for some kind of help. So I really feel for the soul's purpose and their evolution, it's better to be materialistically poor and spiritually wealthy. That if you're materialistically poor and you've got a lot of humanistic challenges that you're needing to deal with in your life, you go inside, you don't go outside. And by that need, because of the lack of the external world, you have no other choice, right? You have to go inside if you want to rise above these challenges and iniquities. You'll find your strength, you'll find your courage. Every time the KKK came after me, anybody came after me, and I'm like running, it's like, thank you! Because I wanted to run into God's arms again. They only accelerated my need to go back to Father again. I loved it, that I needed Father more and more and more, because that just developed my relationship. It's like, it's me. You see who's behind me? Help! Kind of thing. So, but people today don't do that. They're so blinded by the materialism, the illusions of things, and they like their false sense of security and money and things, right? But when those things failed, then, we better give God a call. Why not even go there? Why even build up that false sense of security? Why not just live a simple life of lack, of materialistic, not necessarily poverty, but at least that you're staying in a humbled state, and that you realize you came down here on earth as a soul, a soul, and to experience God's presence and Jesus' presence through your incarnation down here. It's like when you're with him And that's okay, and you got that connection. But then as soon as like you're incarnating your body, it's like, oh, shopping malls, let's go here. Oh, let's get a big diamond ring. Oh, hey, I need new breasts today. Or I need some Botox. I don't want my muscles to move. It's like, why do they forget? Why do they all of a sudden put all of these illusions as priorities on their bucket list, and they're going round and round and round like a hamster wheel? Because at the end of the day, they are starving themselves, because none of these things is going to feed their soul. None of it. And at the end of the day, their body, guarantee, nobody can argue with me about this, their body's going to die. And then what do we have left? A soul. Well, that's all you ever were anyway. When you put the body on, it's just like trying to put shoes on or putting a coat on. So why are you so over concerned and obsessed with your body? Why are you sitting there and you got to have hair extensions, and nails out to here? Why do you do this? And then all that time, the hole in you is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so what do you think you do? Well, I need to shop more, or I need cocaine, or I need alcohol, or I need more casual sex, because they're starving to death, because they're not addressing and identifying, recognizing themselves as a soul. And they're not even thinking about, okay, I need a certain amount of nutrition for my human body, but what does my soul need today? And I need that connection with God, and I need that connection with Jesus. Number one, that's the priority. That's the family unit. That's the connection right there. And then nothing else matters. Because as a child, if I didn't have that, if Jesus hadn't found me, I got set up. I didn't find him, he found me. That if I didn't have that 2,000 years ago, there's no way, if I was incarnated in the same life in this lifetime in the ghettos of Chicago and Cabrini Greens as a little white kid in the ghetto, there's no way I would have survived it. I would have been one of those girls on the street, giving myself to a pimp. I would have been doing drugs, I would have been doing all of that, because I wouldn't have known any different. And I would have just said, well, there's nothing to live for anyway, so death. And a lot of the runaways I met, that's what they were. The girls got into the prostitution. The girls were doing heroin. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Because I want to die. There's nothing to live for. I want to die. Luckily, I was so blessed that one part of my evolution, somewhere along the line of my evolution, I chose God above all things. And he allowed me to meet his son 2,000 years ago. And I became part of that family, part of that unit on a soul level, not through religion. I didn't have a middleman. I didn't have a priest, although they tried to disconnect me through the exorcism.
I know.
But that didn't happen. No, I did the hammer thing. Don't touch this, No, I bit, I screamed, I kicked, I fought when my mother brought me in. And there was no way. And the priest said, you're right, she's possessed by the devil. And I was laughing my butt off because I knew I wasn't possessed by the devil. This does not come from the devil. It feels too damn good. It's love. It's love, So, and here I have a priest, with the crucifix and, all that stuff telling me, a little kid, I'm possessed by the devil. Really? Wow. So that's just all an illusion. They don't even know God, many of them. They've never even experienced him or Jesus. They're just going off of what other humans basically have told them and what they've studied. And, and the Bible, I respect it, but it's not the whole story. It's just not. They have really just watered it down and put pieces here and there, and and there is truth in it, but it's not the whole story, not at all.
And that's one part I feel like people tend to look over, where it says we know in part.
Mm-hmm. It's only part of the story. I call it, no disrespect, the 10% real fruit juice. There's only 10% real fruit juice, because having experienced Jesus as a child 2,000 years ago, has never left me. And obviously, when I went through the past life regression, that totally activated it and brought it back again. And then my own current experiences where God has come through me through healings and stuff like that. And for me, you can read a book. That's fine, no matter what the book is. But the only way you're really going to get it is through experience. That's when your soul or yourself really learn through experience. You know, Mom used to say, don't touch the stove, it's hot, you know, you'll burn your hand. And I've been an experiential person all my life. And what do you think I did? I took my hand on the stove, you know.
Tell us the name of your book again.
The book is Jesus and a Roman Centurion, a Past Life Memoir.
And if they want to get your book or get in touch with you, how do they do that?
The website is www.spiritualwisdomradio.com. Spiritualwisdomradio.com. But the book is available Amazon.com. Thank you, by the way, for the 5-star review. And it's a novel, you know, print, ebook. It's available all over the world. But to know more about me and the description of the book, read the reviews, spiritualwisdomradio.com.
And Clementina, you are on the Truth Will Set You Free show. Give us a truth to remember you by.
We are children of God, without a doubt, no matter what the man-made world wants to say or try to make us believe, and that we all have that same potential within us. Everything that I shared, I'm not special. I am not special. I might be a runner up ahead, that I've experienced maybe some things that many people have not had the opportunity. But that's why I accepted the responsibility to share my life experiences, both life experiences in this time, because everything that I've been able to experience and what I've been able to acknowledge and accomplish, everyone has the exact same potential. Just as my brother Jesus said, if I can do these things, you can do these things as well, and even greater things. And now I'm living it. I have stepped into that dimension that he said 2,000 years ago as an adult after I got killed. So we all have that potential within us, and that should be our goal. That should be our priority in life, is obtaining that and learning how to do that, rather than worrying what size our breasts are. I mean, really, like, you know, yeah, because that you're not going to take them with you anyway, right? But this obviously transfers from one lifetime to another. And even if there wasn't any lifetimes, there was only one, what do you still want? You're still going to lose your plastic surgery at the end of the day. But you're going to be able to take this. Even if there's only one lifetime, that's all you're going to be able to take, is that connection with God and Jesus. So why spend so much time on this body? I don't get it. I look at it like a car. It's like a car. You know, what's the big deal? It's just to get you from one place to another, you know? And they need to remember that they're a spiritual being. As everybody uses that thing, having an earthly experience. Well, live it. Don't just say it. I know it's a good motto on a sticker button, but do it. Do it. And don't worry about the human body. It's just
Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you.
You're going to have to come back, you know.
I'd love to. Sure, anytime.
Take care.
Yay. Bye.
Bye-bye.